Hello, welcome back to my haunted library and welcome to Slow Burn Sunday. We haven't done that in a while and it's back by popular demand because the public just demanded it. So here I am. There's nothing better than watching a nice slow burn horror film on a snowy winter day or even a sunny winter day as far as I'm concerned, especially on a Sunday. So the film that I've chosen is one I've seen many times before. It is a classic, and that is Don't Look Now, a 1973 English language thriller shot in Venice, Italy by Nicholas Roeg, starring Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland. And it is also based on a short story by Daphne du Maurier, who is an incredible writer. She wrote two of my favorite books, Rebecca and My Cousin Rachel. The short story is part of a collection, and I've only read that one. I had the book, though. Years ago, I had a really nice, it was probably like a first edition copy of that. I have no idea what happened to it, so I ended up getting it on Kindle and rereading the story for this video. But I knew I had read it before, and as soon as I started reading it, of course, I remembered it. It is a very pared down version compared to the film. The film is very different, but it's the same plot. The filmmaker obviously took a lot of creative license and done in a very good way. The film by itself is really an incredible work of art. So this film in the story, if you don't know it, it relies on a super twist at the end. And I'm not going to reveal what that twist is in this review, lest I inspire the ire of a lot of people. So I'm just going to leave that part out. But I will have other spoilers. So if you'd rather just watch it and then maybe come back to this video, maybe you should do that. Because it really is one of those types of films. I don't know if this is the case with every Daphne du Maurier story. I know she also wrote The Birds, which is a short story which the Hitchcock film is based on. But at least as far as Rebecca and My Cousin Rachel and Don't Look Now are concerned, there's big twists. And I love twists. I love to write them when my talent will allow me to come up with a good one. It's one of my favorite things in literature, and this is a really great twist. One thing I do have to say about this film is that before I ever saw it, or certainly before I ever read it, someone told me what the twist was. I was on a tour back in the 80s. I was acting in a production of Romeo and Juliet that toured to different high schools. Just one of the many adventures of my life. I was playing Juliet's mother when I was 26 years old. I was playing the mother's part, which I don't know. I didn't really want to play Juliet. It's not really a part that I felt like I was cut out for. And it was a lot of fun. We traveled all over the United States and stayed at really bad motels and, drove around in this little van together with a bunch of people and a lot of different characters. It was a good experience. But one night, probably just out of boredom, the girl playing Juliet, I think we were staying at some sleazy motel way down south. We went all the way down to New Orleans, which was pretty cool, but we were staying in some motel and we were hanging out by the pool. And, one of those really kind of scary pools. And she had asked me, have you ever seen this movie, Don't Look Now? And I hadn't at the time. And she was just like, okay, I watched this movie and I've got to tell someone about it because it freaked me out so much. And she told me the whole thing, including the twist. And I got scared just from her telling me that story. And she was a good actress. She told the story very well. But I went into watching the movie the first time knowing what the twist was. And I kind of wish I hadn't. That's all I'm going to say. But so it starts off at a very tragic story. A couple living in some part of England, like in the country or in this beautiful country home. And first of all, the editing in this movie is pretty incredible. Donald Sutherland works as someone who restores old cathedrals and art, crumbling architecture. So he looks like he's preparing to do a restoration of an old church in Venice. And the setting of Venice is like its own character. I've never been to Venice. I would love to go. But this shows a different side of Venice that you would get if you were doing like a summer tourist group going. It's cold. It has a almost like a death in Venice feel, like a rotting quality. So this idea of rot permeates throughout this movie to wonderful effect. Anyway, so it begins with him looking at some slides for this project before digital photography. And I remember having slide projectors. I still have my old slide projector. I still have a bunch of slides too. But anyway, he is looking at the slide, and the beginning is so haunting. The music, this ominous mood that is struck, the motif of water. This little girl in a red slicker, their daughter, is playing around this pond, and she has a ball. Her brother, we assume, is there, and he's kind of doing his own thing. And we know something bad is going to happen. And we see this, and this starts right off in the beginning, seeing this intercut between what's going on inside the house with the couple, just kind of like a mundane afternoon, and the children playing outside. Donald Sutherland is looking at this slide, and you see in the church, in this cathedral that we assume is what he's going to be working on, this figure in a red cape. It's really scary. I just got chills thinking about it. I mean, it's so creepy and scary. Especially when you like know what it is after watching it the first time. This little like red cape that looks a lot like the little girl's red slicker. One of them, I forget which one, spills a drink like coffee or tea or something, and it makes the color on the slide run, and it looks like blood. That is intercut with this little girl drowning in the pond. And Donald Sutherland's character, I should get their names of their characters. I keep calling them Donald Sutherland. John and Laura. John has like a psychic premonition that something horrible has happened. He runs out of the house. Oh, and the little boy cuts himself on a piece of glass. At the same time, he runs over a piece of glass. There's all of this imagery of destruction and water and creepy foreshadowing. And in this incredibly harrowing scene, John runs out and pulls his daughter out of the pond, and it's really heart-wrenching. It's really hard to watch. And then Laura, the wife, played by Julie Christie, sees it and screams, and then we cut to the next sequence. So then it's all kind of shown like a little bit in flashback of them leaving England. This horrible tragedy has happened, but we don't see the funeral of the little girl. We don't really see the immediate aftermath. We just know that this couple's really suffering. So it's like they've gone on to do this job in Venice and kind of making a bit of a vacation out of it. But it's off season, it's cold. I have to say that, first of all, Julie Christie is so gorgeous in this movie and just beautiful to watch. And her wardrobe is to die for. I just love her clothes. She wears these incredible like tweeds. And not, a lot of times we think of the 70s as having really like tacky styles, but that's not altogether true. Maybe the stuff you saw in the Sears catalog was like that, but there were some beautiful, beautiful clothes from that time period. And this suit that she wears at the end, this black and white herringbone suit with the shoulders, it's got to be Yves Saint Laurent. I don't know if it is. I tried to find out, but it's to die for. There's a great website called Clothes on Film. I'm going to see if they have information. I don't know if that website is still online. I used to go and look at that all the time. It was great. I will see if that's the case. I just thought of it. I'm going to put it below if it is, but her clothes are incredible. And John, Donald Sutherland looks a little dapper too. This was during his perm stage. He made a lot of movies around this time in Europe. I think he did a 1900, that Italian film, Bertolucci film around this time. He did The Body Snatchers, Animal House. This is all his like perm period. Julie Christie looks like she has a perm too, or it could just be like hot rollers like I did with mine today. So they are in Venice. He's doing this job. She is just mired in grief. Like she can't get past this grief. Their son is in boarding school. I don't think you could ever get past that kind of grief, especially in this situation where you would always blame yourself. And she kind of blames him a little bit. I guess he was like, yeah, let him play outside. They'll be fine. That's like something my dad would have said. Yeah, like, I mean, I cannot tell you how close we came to dying with that kind of, I mean, it was great. We had a free range childhood. My sister fell through thin ice when we were trying to skate on the pond without telling my parents one time. And, I pulled her out, and it was that kind of thing where we were trying to get her out, and I was like laying flat, and the ice started breaking under me, and she kept grabbing it, and it kept breaking. That could have been a disaster, obviously. There were many, many other instances like that where just by the grace of God, we survived. Anyway, again, I'm going off on a tangent. So John and Laura are now in Venice. They are having this beautiful lunch at a cafe. And then we get to the first scene in the short story, and the first line is, don't look now, but these women are staring at us. And there are these two like middle-aged English ladies sitting there and kind of looking at them. They're like a little confused. Laura helps. The one is kind of struggling a little bit physically. They can't find the bathroom. They start to go into the men's room. They're, confused English tourists, and Laura helps them. And this shows a side of her personality. She's a very maternal character. You can just tell that. She doesn't seem to have a career herself, or maybe she does, but she is a mom. So it's like, it's almost like she's lost her sense of purpose now. So when she's in the bathroom with these two ladies, one of the women, and this is a very scary character, one of the sisters who's blind, Laura realizes that she's blind, and she has these very, I'm not saying blind people are scary, but the way it's depicted in this film is her eyes are really like blue and very filmy and kind of staring. And she's like, I see your little girl. And she's laughing. Oh, she's laughing. And Laura, she says, oh, Christine, you've seen my daughter. So the other sister, who's kind of like very like a very English Tweety kind of lady, like Tweety, not Tweety, but Tweety, wearing the tweeds, and she's on the moors, and I hope I'm not offending anyone with that characterization, but she's got that like gray haircut. And she's like, oh, well, my sister is blind, but she's also psychic. She has second sight. So Laura gets pulled into these two old biddies. And when she comes back to the table, she's happy because she's made this connection with her daughter. And then in this amazing scene, she just like faints and knocks over the table, and it's like a big mess. And she goes to the hospital for a little bit. And when she comes out, she's like a changed woman. She's back to her old self. And then we get into this very controversial scene where they make love. Now, I have to say, I know there's a lot of controversy about this scene. Like, there was and you can read about this online, but there was a rumor that they really did it, Warren Beatty, who was dating Julie Christie at the time, was really upset. Donald Sutherland said they didn't do it. In fact, they shot it they rented a hotel room, and the director came in and did like a handheld camera. It does have a spontaneous, like realistic feel to it. And I guess at that time it was pretty graphic, just in showing the nudity and everything. I've seen more graphic, of course, in many movies. The thing I don't like about the scene, I know it's special because it shows this married couple like making love, but I just find it super cringy. I don't know if it's the music, if it's like the 70s kind of like vibe to it, or if it's just Donald Sutherland. But there's something where she's like nibbling his armpit, and he's like doing this ecstatic face or something. It just, it's so cringe. I find it cringe, sorry. It is brilliantly intercut with a scene of them getting ready to go out to dinner in a very, very like married life kind of scene. They have very, married sex, and they're, she's putting on her outfit to go out, and he's, doing himself up with his tie and his cologne and stuff. And they're kind of exchanging, glances. So it's beautiful in that it shows this couple finding their way back. And it's in the story, it's one line where John, I think it's told from his point of view, the story, where he says, now we'll make love. So that's all it is in the book. Or the story, it's no elaborate sex scene. It's implied that this will be the first time they do it since the daughter died, because the wife was so full of grief that she could not give that of herself. Now that she saw the sisters and feels relief, she now can, be a wife to her husband or whatever, however you want to interpret it. But so I get that the scene is beautiful and special, but it's also cringy. I just can't help it. So at the same time all of this is happening, there has been a series of serial killings in Venice. So you see these scenes of like the police in their police boats. You see a body being pulled from one of the canals. Really scary. There is a serial killer at large. And also, Donald Sutherland, John, becomes concerned with Laura being pulled into this relationship with these weird sisters. He thinks they're charlatans just trying to rip her off. And there is a little bit of an indication of that in the movie, where she arranges to have like a seance with them. Nicholas Roeg does this, and I've noticed this throughout the film. Well, he'll linger on a secondary character. Like he'll linger on the concierge at the hotel after Donald Sutherland's character walks out. And then we'll see that character's reaction. So it's kind of a switch of point of view, which you don't see a lot of directors doing that. So it's very interesting. This film has a very experimental quality to it, and it's really good. But after Laura leaves, you see these sisters kind of doing this sinister laughter. It reminded me a lot of, in that movie, it's one of my favorite David Lynch films, Mulholland Drive, when in the taxi cab with the old couple, and they're like looking at each other and like, they do this like really creepy laugh. There is that in this movie. And you wonder, are they laughing because they're just weird? Or are they laughing because they're really pulling one over on Laura? They get a call from their son's boarding school in England that the son had some kind of accident. In the book, the daughter does not drown in the pond. She dies from meningitis. So in the book, the son gets sick. So they're afraid that he might have meningitis. So Laura flies back to England to be with the child. And John stays in Venice. In the movie, he stays in Venice because he's going to continue working on the church. And there's this Italian bishop that's kind of a mysterious character he looks more like a mafioso or something, just the way he looked. The whole thing of restoring the church, there's some like great scenes where he's putting this like gargoyle in place and is like face to face with this like evil image of this gargoyle or demon. And that's great filmmaking because it kind of shows him confronting evil without having to say it. I forgot to mention the scene where Donald Sutherland falls off a scaffold, almost dies, and apparently he did this stunt himself. The stuntman didn't show up. It's pretty amazing that he did this, and it does look extremely dangerous. There are so many examples like that in this movie, just visually. But so Laura goes back, but when John, is on a boat, he sees her in this really creepy scene where he sees her pass his boat. He sees her in another boat, and he's screaming, "Laura, what are you doing?" And he swears he saw her. She was right on the boat. So he contacts the police, and they bring the sisters in because he sees them she's with the sisters, I forgot to say that, in the boat. They're just standing there. There's this whole thing where the police investigate the sisters, and then he starts to see this little figure in a red slicker running over the bridges and along the canals in Venice. I'm just going to leave it there because of the twist, and I don't want to give it away. So that was Don't Look Now. It's great. It's a great slow burn, and it's really, really scary. Well, Matilda finally came in to join us at the end. So what did you think of Don't Look Now?
Well, I really liked it, and I adored that very sensitive love scene. I really think we should plan a trip to Venice, Regina.
Okay. Well, let me know in the comments below if you've seen this movie, if you read the short story. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that's all we have for today. Join us again soon for another Slow Burn Sunday, and we'll see you next time. Bye!